Well, 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 that was the best fade I've ever done, right? Welcome everyone to the Second Life Book Club. This is the free for all edition. And let's see who is here. Free for all edition means mainly that I'm streaming myself, so the quality is awful. We don't have professionals here. Water, Shyla, the Resistor, Lux, Diverson. Jessica, Bunny, the Panthers are here. Flenza, Panny, and Screaming is here new. Welcome to the book club, Little Brat and Stranger Nightfire. So today I do want audience participation. I would like to have I would like to have it. There's no obligation here. I want to talk about 2023 reading plans. Not necessarily goals, but more like plans. What are your plans, right? Not like, okay, I'm gonna um, not necessarily titles or X amount, but what are your plans in terms of your reading habits? Um, Please put that in local chat and I will read it. And also welcome to the folks on YouTube. Here's Kitten Duo. Kitten, hello. Kitten Duo is on YouTube. And Kitten, this goes out to you as well. What are your reading plans in terms of habits? For example, are you going to use your lunch break at a specific time? Are you going to, um, let's say, get into the habit of reading at night for 30 minutes or something like that before you fall asleep, or even to fall asleep? This is something that is to me quite obvious. um, the resistor says I'm using a bookmark in 2023. Now that is pretty cool. So I'm assuming you mean a physical bookmark that you put into the book. Elaborate a little bit on this. So this seems to be new to you. Um, I wonder, did you get confused in the past? Like, oh shit, where am I? Or did you just put the book upside down with the open where you stop reading, or how did you do that? Because I always run out of bookmarks. I have tons of bookmarks, but I never have them where I need them to have them. And so I always use like weird stuff like aluminum foil when I'm like this morning I was reading in the kitchen. I didn't have a bookmark, but there was a piece of aluminum foil that was on the milk crate because I lost the lid for the milk crate, so I took it off the milk crate. I put the milk without the lid back into the fridge to use the little aluminum foil. Um, Stranger says fold over the corner of the page. I like that. I like that. I'm not one of those guys who uses books as like, these museum type artifacts that they have to be pristine or whatever. Hold on, let me just get rid of this session here. God. Um, so I don't mind. Some people mind, if you do fold over the page, then you're ruining your book and stuff like that. I'm not like that. I think it's actually pretty cool later when you reread or you take it out of the shelf and you see like, oh wow, this is where I folded the page. Maybe it was important or whatever. And that leads you onto maybe like a little journey. Screaming Siren says, I use anything and everything as a bookmark. I used to full pages till I lost part of a Harry Potter page that way. Oh, you lost. Oh my God. Okay, so that I guess the page ripped out of the book. Panther says, uses books as bookmarks for other books. Pantera, that is awesome. I do the exact same thing. I have used books on top of other books, and I go like, okay, how do I do that? And I shoved a a thinner book into a thicker book as a bookmark. Jessica, here we go. Jessica, please put your website up so people can buy your books. And even if the book, even let's just say hypothetically your books suck, they don't. Then people get a free bookmark. Lottery ticket says bookmark says Bunny. Monkey says I fold books into each other. Yeah, yeah, like I get it. That is awesome. Um, Little Brett says that one in a bookmark one of my sisters made. Let's see, did I miss it? I used a bookmark a friend made me for Christmas a year ago. So you're still using? Do people throw away these bookmarks? Are you sometimes sad that a bookmark is gone? What is also really interesting is if you use like ticket stubs or whatever. I used to go to concerts, not always as frequently as other people do. I haven't been to a concert for a long time, but I used to go to a few concerts. And when I lived in the Los Angeles area, I went to quite a few concerts. And recently I found a ticket stub to a Henry Rollins show from 1997 or something like that. And also in a book that I took out. And then also I found a ticket stub to Patrick Stewart at the Hollywood Bowl reading A Christmas Carol, performing it actually as a one-man show. Let's see. I want to make sure I gotta make this window a little bit bigger so I should have this window on a separate screen. Flenser. I put stuff upside down for a short time. Yep. Then try to memorize page if longer time. Um, Everybody says they keep their bookmarks. Yeah, and these bookmarks or whatever you use, they also then help you to time travel back to the time when you read these books. That is really awesome. Little Brett says if it's a bookmark someone made to me and I really like it, I'll get sad if I lost it. Panther uses many things. And Screaming says one time I got a book from the thrift store and it had a bank deposit slip from 1999. See, that is so awesome. That is also when you get used books and you find stuff in it from a store or some sort of like a business card or some sort. I mean, it's just more stories on top of the stories in the book. Monkey says I
You
sign
know,
all my
uh,
books. Shyla, yeah.
I was going to say, speaking of that, when I was a kid, I was reading, I was like getting into some Ralph Waldo Emerson, and I bought a set of old books of his
Hmm.
at a garage sale. And I opened them up, and there were love letters in there.
Oh
It
my
was so
God.
sweet.
Like more than one, like a few?
Yes, written in this beautiful. The books were printed early 1900s, and it had this beautiful penmanship. Only one side of the letters, though, just the uh, the lady's side,
The receiver, the one that obviously owned the book, and she kept
right?
it in there.
Yeah.
Wow, that is quite amazing. Now you can then write or imagine the other side, the other side of the person of this dialogue. Um, Kitten says, "I read to fall asleep. It is great cause. Some night I dream about what I have read." I really like that, Kitten. That's what I wanted to say. I think this is quite obvious, but I think it needs repeating that reading to fall asleep is a wonderful way to fall asleep. Now, some people say like, well, yeah, but then I don't remember half of the stuff that I was reading, is a waste of time. No, you know what? You know what's bad for you? I'm not the first one who tells you that is to watch TV to fall asleep. Honestly, folks, or anything others overstimulating, anything sort of passively overstimulating in the audiovisual realm. This is not just me saying it because I have a disdain for the audiovisual realm, despite being a Second Life addict and a video editor and a filmmaker. But falling asleep to that is not healthy. Um, so yeah, that would be a fantastic habit to pick up. Um, to say, hey, I'm going to shut down the TV or the computer at some point, and then I will read before bed. So, are there any other habits or tips? One I am curious about where you guys read. I mean, we're all sort of, I guess, folks who work from home in a more flexible sense. I guess. I mean, I'm sort of assuming this because we're all sort of in Second Life that it's almost all the folks that I know are well, I shouldn't say that actually because some people um, have jobs outside of the house, but the kind of flexibility that, for example, I have by working from home, I can the luxury is to be able to read whenever I want. When I get my stuff done, I can read at home. I don't have to kind of, if I'm like, it's, let's say, a noisy office shop, or I work at a cafe as a barista, for instance, and where do you read? Where do you find the peace of mind and all this kind of stuff? So that's much more challenging when you work outside of the house. Little Brett says, I read on my paperwhite to fall asleep if the 3 months old puppy let me read or listen to audiobooks when the puppy sleeps during the day. So morning ritual to read, Monkey. That I like that. Same here. Morning ritual. I make my porridge and then I read. Resistor says mark interesting areas in color with small post-it. Very good. Small post-its are your friend. It's awesome. And even if you even there's like all this elaborate stuff that some I saw on booktubes videos, booktube where people talk about books. Where this one guy was talking about making all these elaborate four color post-its, and then he has this full system which is really amazing. But it doesn't even have to be that way. He makes notes on the post-its, then he reads again, then he catalogs the post-its in another notebook. So a very academic way. I think that's great, but it's not a requirement, I think, to understand what you're doing. But I do want to get into the habit of summarizing the the book that when I'm done, and also kind of the feelings that I got from it. Not a formal review, but I want to keep some sort of record of it. And it can feel a little bit like school sometimes. And then my inner 15-year-old rebel says, "No, I don't. You're not gonna make me take notes here." And then I go like, I'm doing this for myself, not for, not for some stupid school system. Um, Little Brett says, I'm not sure why, but I always find it harder to read my book if it's totally quiet around me. See, this is interesting, Little Brett. See, thank you for saying that because this is very different. People are very different that way. I prefer it to be completely quiet or a noise floor like on a plane. But I'm telling you, if what happens sometimes in the summer here in my apartment building, that this super obnoxious guy who lives on the ground floor is out in the yard on his cell phone and yapping, and other people are yapping, or in the evening people are on the balcony like that I cannot read. I need to have earplug. I put earplugs on, or I put ocean wave sounds. So little Brad, I don't know. Do you have that too? Does it need to be a certain type of noise, like an indistinguishable, where the individual parts of that noise are indistinguishable, meaning like a noise floor, not necessarily white noise, but just something, even many, many different voices that are where you can't discern what they're actually saying? Or would you not mind if somebody was talking on the cell phone in an obnoxious way about, hey, can you believe what this soccer club XYZ did? Um, Monkey says I have commonplace book in which I copy favorite passages or quotes from the book. Yeah, that's awesome. Last week we talked about fleeters. I picked up the term fleeters, which means fleeting thoughts. So I now have a fleeter notebook that I carry with me at all times. It's not only uh, about books or thoughts from books, but any type of like fleeting thought. Little Brett said preferably some sort of talking I don't get forced into listening to. Well, yeah, but if they talk, I mean, I find that very distracting. But yeah. Panther says, I find it more annoying when people are watching movie videos on their phone. It's very loud. I usually have this problem when the parents take their kid along. Or you, Panther, you mean like at the cafe, or something like that, or on the bus? Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That is difficult. Resistor said, I put my book on the music stand after the singing lesson and read 2 pages. Ah, the resistor takes singing lessons. Yeah. These distractions, but I think also what's interesting is to practice. Again, I mean, this is hard, but I'm forcing myself to practice being still in the moment with these distractions. Streaming, the question was, can you read when it's loud? Do you have to have it very quiet when it's read? What are your reading rituals? Morning, evening, lunch break. Um, Panther says when it's loud enough to hear anything and you're only missing the visuals, I just can't. I don't know if I understand that. When it's loud enough to hear everything and you're only missing the visuals. Oh, you mean like somebody's watching a video and you don't see the visuals of that video, but you're distracted, you're disturbed by the noise. Well, if you would see the visuals, you would also be distracted because then you would not be able to read your book. Um, Shiloh says I usually read with quiet, but it seems to help us come sort of to use some sort of mood lighting, cool, relaxing colors. Folks, this is really, really good food for thought. I want to share with you now that I'm going to, and I have a few slides. I chose to, and I said this last week, I chose to, one of my reading plans is to reread. There's so many great books that I read, and I could reread maybe 60% of them. That's obviously not possible. It would be possible, but then I wouldn't read anything new. So I chose to reread 4 books, and I didn't even find the one that I was looking for. So I don't have a slide. But here's the first one that I'm planning on rereading. This is The Third Policeman. I think I got to reset the texture so that we can actually see it. Um, oh, I can't edit that object. The Third Policeman is an absolutely mind-boggling, fairly concise novel. And let's just put it over here so we see the whole thing. I don't know why that is not set properly. Here we go in all its glory. Look at this cover. It almost looks like it's a house in Second Life. This is the two-dimensional police station. It is somewhat two-dimensional. The third policeman is about a a killer, a criminal who kills a man uh, for money, and it's kind of a ruthless guy. You hear a little bit of his backstory, but then he kills that man, and then something happens. Something strange happens. Um, it's described in a strange way, but something happens, and he finds himself in somewhat of another world that is kind of governed by 2 policemen who are very strange. And these 2 policemen, they talk about a third policeman who is also strange. And these 2 policemen talk about bicycles a lot. And they talk about people merging with bicycles. They talk about the most absurd, surreal stuff, like when you ride a bicycle too much, then you will turn into a bicycle and you become a half man, half bicycle. They talk about that. Then they talk about eternity, and that eternity is basically a bunch of machines, and they have to take readings from these machines, and it goes on and on. Very entertaining, very strange, very disorienting, but very, very entertaining. So this person, this criminal, then starts a guy named, I think, John, starts talking to him, and it turns out that John is his soul, and so his soul is talking to him. All the while, everybody's talking about this third policeman who doesn't show up. And at some point, he does show up, and I'm not going to spoil it. There is an amazing twist at the end, and you have to reread it basically right away because you realize that this is so much about the nature of life and death and what it means to be human. It is incredible. And last word on this, my first reread of the year, is that if you have watched, Stranger says, is the third policeman named Godot. No, um, the if you have watched the television show Lost, which is quite metaphysical, one of the last big shows that I watched, a milestone, highly regarded piece of entertainment about a bunch of people who crash on an island, and then all sorts of mysterious stuff is happening, and there's a guy in a hatch um, down below who pushes a button and says, "If I don't push this button, then the world will end," and everything. Very, very, very deep show with spiritual themes, with metaphysical themes, and in that show they placed a lot of books. And in season two, one episode they placed the third policeman somewhere on the set, and um, that week, the third policeman sold, I don't know, more copies than ever before, and this book was published in the 60s. And one of the head writers of the show said, if you want to know what's going on in Lost, because people were like, what is going on here? They were speculating about what is the nature of this island? Where are they? And that head writer said, if you read this book, you will understand what's happening in Lost. And I'm not kidding you. I bought the book back then, and it's been in my shelf for 10 years or something, or 10 plus years. And now I read it, and now I actually do know what's going on in Lost. But anyway, even if you're not a Lost fan, you will love that. Exist Extinct says here, books don't really hold my attention. I'm sorry to hear that, Exist, but try try small. Try and find yourself 10, 15 minutes a day to read a few pages in quiet, and don't force yourself to do crazy things that you may see or hear other people say, oh, I read 5 hours in one sitting. Start small, but reading is incredibly important vis-a-vis audiovisual entertainment, a business that I work in, um, because reading is flexing the muscle of imagination. We learn how to imagine. We imagine worlds. The the act of translating um, black ink on white paper into a world in your head is incredibly important. Um, I use reading, to me, reading is meditation, quite frankly. And it's actually cheaper than yoga lessons too. And it doesn't hurt your ankles that much. So, Exist Extinct. Last book I tried to read was The Art of War. Yeah, that is awesome. I haven't read it, but that's on my list. You know, don't for I maybe Exist Extinct. You wanna? He's on YouTube here. Exist Extinct said that books don't hold his attention. Elaborate a little bit, and maybe we can help you here in world. Maybe people have ideas when somebody says books don't hold my attention. What would you recommend? Would you recommend maybe a different book? My first instinct would be to say smaller bites, but regular bites. Find a routine, set it in the calendar, set your clock every day, 10 minutes at a very specific time, and don't be too ambitious. Jessica says audiobooks. I disagree. I think audiobooks are awesome, but the the issue with audiobooks is that it's easy to multitask. One of the big important things I think with books is that it forces you to single task, and single tasking is very good for your brain. Very, very good. Screaming says short stories. There you go, Screaming. Oh my God. Okay, everybody put their short story collection here. Screaming. See, this is the most, this is the answer here. Short stories. Absolutely. Start with short stories. Now, what comes to mind immediately for me, Kurt Vonnegut. Welcome to the Monkey House. Please, somebody retrieve that link. Welcome to the Monkey House and put it into the chat. That's and if other people have ideas for short story collections, please put it here in the chat. That's a great idea. Existing things I like books that are info, not using my imagination. Okay. Exist Extinct says he likes books for information, not using my imagination. I'm not sure how to parse that. Maybe he means he enjoys nonfiction, informational stuff versus fiction. That's totally fine. Borges, Guitar Water is very well read. I thought Guitar Water only reads books with fish in it. I don't remember Jorge Luis Borges had fish in his books. Borges is just absolute master. Absolutely. Borges. Flenser says Poe, Edgar Allan Poe. Yes. Did I miss somebody? Please retype it. Wow, we have a lot of audience participation today. I prepared a show that is 2 hours long, just in case. We're going to be tight. Short reads for me was the Goosebumps books. Yes. Yes, the Goosebumps books. There you go. Very fond memories. Very fond memories of those. Absolutely. Um, a German series is the Drei Fragezeichen. Do you have any Germans in the audience? Dead relatives is yes. Little Brett says dead relatives. Thank you. Monkey, maybe you can retrieve that link. Dead relatives is from our guest Lucy McKnight Hardy. Really cool. Really cool stuff. Eerie, weird, violent, horror-ish. Wonderful stuff. Screaming says, I'm a Kurt Vonnegut fan. Welcome. You're welcome here to the book club. Screaming, I was going to eject you from the group, but now you can stay. Breakfast of Champions says existing. Awesome. Vonnegut is awesome. J.G. Ballard, of course. J.G. Ballard. You know what, stranger? I bought recently a J.G. Ballard book. God, and the name escapes me now. It's about also kind of virtual reality. I saw it in the used bookstore. I bought it. I put it in the shelf. I completely forgot about it. Maybe we should do a JG Ballad next time. Actually, next free for all when we have no guest, maybe we should talk about short stories and we'll prepare short stories. That's a great idea. I'll put the word out in the group next time. We have a bunch of guests lined up, but then when we have the next free for all, and just to let you know, everybody should know this, but Screaming is new. Um, Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Wait a minute. Is that what is that? Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Tanosphere. Is that the J.G. Ballard book? Is that the one I have? God, I am so confused. Anyway, what I was gonna say is that uh, if people don't know, we have guests, and if we have no guests, we call this free for all. And that means we have no guests, but which means we have informal conversations about different things where I do prep stuff, but sometimes conversations emerge organically like they do right now. Yeah, okay, Kurt. Sorry. I'm doing a bunch of things. I'm looking over here. Extinct says I even read when I watch shows or a movie, I'll put the captions in Italian or Spanish. Oh, that is interesting. That is pretty cool. Putting captions in a language other than your native language. Um, I actually found, God, now I'm getting sidetracked, but I found a YouTube channel, Mosque Film, which is a Moscow production company that has uploaded a whole bunch of uh, incredibly important Russian movies, including War and Peace. including Stalker. Um, and what? Anyways, let's not get too sidetracked. Cat's Cradle is great. Yes. So now talking rereading. The other thing, rereading, I want to just post here real quick because Shyla is reading, and I want to put this question out here. We had um, we had these guys on, Philip Friedenberg and Jeff Walton, Rick Harsh, from America and the Cult of the Cactus Boots. Now, America and the Cult of the Cactus Boots, people getting tired is an amazing achievement. People getting tired of me repeating this over and over. I just wanted to say that I was planning on rereading this, and I go like, okay, I have other books I want to reread, but then Shyla ordered the book, and I know Monkey has it, so I just want to throw this out there. If people are interested in reading this in very short bits, Shyla and I talked about reading 10 pages a day, not more. Um, Maybe we can find a way, either here in the group messages or on our Discord channel, to have a channel where we talk about this book, and we can ask questions and we can offer advice and we keep track of where we are with the book. So if enough people are interested in doing that, I'll just add a channel on our Discord. This is certainly an amazing book, but I already read it twice. And initially, my plan was to reread it, and then I dumped that plan because there was other stuff. And then Shyla now is reading it, so I feel I should really do it, uh, because not that I have the greatest insight, but I have more insight into this book, which can be very confusing. It is very challenging, it's confusing, but it is incredibly nourishing, and it's an immersive world. So that's that. The other book that I am rereading is this one here. This is a guest that was here on the book club, Tlotlo Tsamase from Botswana, and this is called The Silence of the Wilting Skin, a surrealist masterpiece. This is a novella, it's 90 pages long. Now, you guys should read this, and I'm looking at the YouTube over there. Exist Extinct says, Cool Dragon Flenser. I think this is talking about you here. Let's go a little Flenser. Look at Flenser, look at him. But also look at Jamonkey. Welcome, Jamonkey. Jamonkey's a little late. That's okay. Um, Now, Silence of the Wilting Skin by Tlotlo Tsamase is in fact a surrealist masterpiece. It is in a African country where there is a train dividing a village and a gentrified neighborhood with high rises, and the train goes back and forth. And the train that is dividing these two parts of town is carrying the diseased people who are dying, or who died. They go on, they have to go on that train, and to go to the afterlife. And then sometimes people are not going on the train in time, and then they are sort of stuck in the in between. And the protagonists, um, they jump on this train and they try to cross the train tracks. It is just absolutely amazing, and it's about the allure of um, quick money, about advancing society by um, abandoning tradition and culture, erasing culture, bulldozing over it. But it's those kind of decisions that are made in countries, um, on the African continent and in the developing world, maybe more so than in already developed countries. Although here in Germany they want to erase an entire city just to get more coal out of the ground. So this is still happening, but this book is a very, very African um, book, and it is about gentrification, neoliberalism, and it tells that story in an incredibly imaginative way. 90 pages. Please, somebody post the link on YouTube. Pick up this book. Tlotlo is a young author from Botswana. She's immensely talented. And here's the big announcement for the day. I said I have a big announcement, and the announcement is that I will develop. Tlotlo and I are developing a short film based on this book to be made entirely in Second Life as a machinima film. I have often said that feature films or narrative films that are a certain length or they exceed a certain length, it's impossible to do this in Second Life. Huckleberry Hacks has done one, which is very good. But generally speaking, I really don't think that feature-length machinima narratives are possible. Um, but I'm very, very confident that we can pull off a amazing short film, around 10 minutes or so, that will knock people's socks off, that will use an aesthetic that we will develop based on, our favorite filmmakers. Um, I told Lotlo, I'm a big Alejandro Jodorowsky fan. Basically, I want to make a Jodorowsky movie in Second Life, and so that's what we're gonna do. Um, and I will make announcements, and people can pester me if they want to play in this movie. I will certainly reach out to people when it's time to shoot it. There's going to be a lot of development now in terms of writing the script, um, and checking out the sets, what kind of sets we're building, and so on and so forth. But when it's time to cast it, even this down to the smallest role, I will reach out in the group, and we're gonna have a fun time shooting it. It's a fantastic little book. Now let's go to our controversial subject, and I want your input. I'm gonna be brief, and then I'm going to see what you guys have to say. Let's see if okay, so this is really still small, wrongly formatted, and I cannot edit it. I don't know why I cannot edit Marianne's textures. Why is that? Let's put it over here. Separating the art from the artist. Can you do it? Can you do it? Okay. What does that mean? It means that you love a piece of art, you love a book, you love a series, you love a movie, you love a television show, you love a piece of music, you love a band. It's part of your life. You grew up with it. You just discovered it. You love it. You love it. You love it. You love the output of that particular person. Then you find out that that person has done something really bad. Okay? Um, whatever that is, whatever you define as bad, but let's just say something that is um, not that is frowned upon in society. Um, maybe even, you know, I don't know. It could include, I guess, killing someone, raping someone, somebody who Gitter what it says Wagner. Well, come on, not everything the Nazis did was bad. Okay, that's not funny. Um, too soon, I know. And I say this as a grandson of the original Antifa grandfather, who I'm very proud of. But yeah, with the resurgence of right-wing extremists, it's not that's not a funny joke. But yeah, so I'm gonna say something real quick, and then I put it on the floor. So I got rid of I had a bunch of Harry Potter books. I was never a big fan. It was never really important to me. I'm not saying that because it's bad or whatever. It just happened to be. I was probably too old when it came out. I already had sort of my formative years of this kind of stuff, and it's not a judgment on if they're good or bad. It's not a judgment on that at all. As a matter of fact, I have very good friends who are huge Harry Potter fans, where their entire youth is really wrapped up in Harry Potter. And so the fact of the matter is, and I'm going to editorialize, but the author J.K. Rowling is saying despicable things about the most vulnerable part of our population, the LGBTQ plus community. Um, she is hateful in public. She uses a huge platform to do hateful, to say hateful things. And yeah, I'm not going to say that she's directly responsible for LGBTQ folks committing suicide or getting bomb threats or being harassed in public, um, to to the extent that she's not responsible for bomb threats that are going towards clinics and stuff like that, which happened in Boston. Um, but she is vocal and is using her platform, as far as I'm concerned, for hateful speech. It would have been extremely easy for her uh, to pull back, issue an apology, and just be quiet. But she's doubling down, and frankly, I cannot separate the art from the artist at all. I cannot do that when we have, again, the most vulnerable people in our society, people who are suffering from being marginalized and then having to make a decision that ostracizes them in our society. Um, to constantly bombard them with this kind of hate, uh, you know, it's it is something that I don't want to be part of. And when I see these books in my shelf, um, I get reminded of that, and I just don't want to be associated with that, even if it's just owning them. That's where I stand. So let's see if people say stuff. Screaming says we would have zero art, music, anything if we only listened to things created by good people. There would be very little to enjoy. I agree, Screaming Siren, but I think there's a difference between being good and being hateful towards others. I mean, there can be people who do stuff that is arguably mm, bad, but not in a consistent destructive way. I don't know. I mean, I don't. I mean, let's just say, okay, I don't want to pull the Hitler card because it's irrelevant to this discussion. I appreciate your comment, Screaming, um, but I disagree that we would have zero art music. Because there are people who have a moral backbone. A lot of artists actually do. They have some ethical guidelines. I don't know. I'm just picking something out of a hat. For example, John Steinbeck. But John Steinbeck was a very political writer. Um, that John Steinbeck, Kurt Vonnegut, for example, as well. We're not talking about shoplifting here. We're not talking about, I think there's a difference between something that is against the law, like let's say stealing something, versus um, being destructive towards other human beings. I think there's a difference. I'm not advocating you guys steal. People go out like no, steal stuff, and then they get caught by the cops and say, "Well, Draxtor, the book club told me there's no problem when you steal." um, but yeah, that's what I define as. But Screaming is making a good point because I think it's yeah, there's a sliding scale. There's a sliding scale of what you consider to be acceptable and what you don't consider acceptable. So I don't know. Screaming, let me ask you a direct question. If Kurt Vonnegut, if we would find out that Kurt Vonnegut was a serial rapist and he, I don't know, and let's say it's coming out now, and he did that over his entire lifetime, would you still, how would you feel about that? Um, Yeah, Poe married a child. That's certainly problematic. Yeah, that's a good point. Do we hold the 1790s to the same as 2022 evil? That's a good point. I would respond by saying I like to think that we have moved, that society and humankind has moved on, not moved on, moved, grew in terms of, because these things, culture and these social norms, uh, they are very fluid. So I believe that you know, now we don't find, for the most part, slavery acceptable, right? Um, and I think that's pretty good. So we're not talking about Edgar Allan Poe right now. We're talking about 20th century, 21st century artists. That's maybe you should confine it. Let me read what Lux is saying here. Lux is saying, in my home country, Australia, there was a controversy over Bill Henson, the photographer. I had a coffee table book with his work and found it beautiful. Some of the imagery was of nude minors. Suddenly, his work was deemed pornographic in Australia. Europeans and other countries, on the other hand, stood by the artistic beauty of the work rather than seeing it as immoral. Lux, this is also a good point. Again, these social norms are very fluid and they are sometimes different from society to society. I don't know this particular case. I can tell you that I can tell you if somebody is coercing minors to be in a book naked and is monetizing this, and even if the parents are complicit in that, I don't want to have it in my house at all. But that's me. Everybody's different. That's why I hope I preface this with this conversation. Monkey says I agree with screaming. Humans are not one-dimensional. Who determines who is good or bad? Monkey, good point. I decided that J.K. Rowling is a hateful person, and I don't want to be associated with a hateful person. You know,
Yeah,
that's me. Shyla, go ahead.
yeah. I think separating the art from the artist. I mean, the answer is in some cases I can, and in some cases I don't,
Hmm.
because I don't have to. And I'm thinking about the different situations, and a lot of them sadly have to do with those things impacted me personally,
Hmm.
which I would have hoped that it had to do. Although there are some that go beyond that. Like it's just so much that I kind of say no. Um, but, uh, you know, to me, uh, what it is kind of me um, deciding who I'm going to support in life.
That's another good point. You're supporting it as a reader or as even as a buyer. Um, Again, to me, this all has to do with my conception of life and humanity as I just don't distinguish between human beings. So as much as I wouldn't want to have anybody in my bookshelf who advocates for racial superiority, um, I don't want to have anybody in my shelf who says that certain human beings are not human beings, right? I mean, I don't know. I think that's a pretty clear line, even if I'm not directly affected by it. But if somebody advocates, in the case of Mrs. Rowling, that there's something, wrong with people who are um, transgender, and then again consistently punching down towards people who um, are being so marginalized. Uh, that's the same as punching down on immigrants, for example. Life is this is so contrary to my the fiber of my being, what I find important in terms of advancing humankind. So the kind of hierarchy, I guess, at the basis is really the issue of looking at human beings in a hierarchical sense. We had Angela Saini on here talking about race science last a couple of weeks ago, which was really interesting. Screaming says I wouldn't support an active, hateful person ever, but once again, that was wrong in 1930 isn't the same wrong as 2022. I don't know. I think in the 30s, and I'm from Germany, there was a lot wrong in the 30s, um, and it's still wrong today. The interesting thing is
Can I?
that those things there's a resurgence in those kind of conceptions of what is worth living and what is not. Monkey, go ahead.
Yeah, the only thing I want to say to that is that the absolute cancellation, if I can use an inexpensive word,
Hmm.
to that kind of thing, I don't believe, first of all, that just because you have a controversial or contentious book on your bookshelf doesn't mean that you have to agree with it. Second of all,
I'm not
I
talking,
think
I'm
it's
sorry to interrupt, but
no,
I'm not
no,
talking about a controversial book. I'm talking about a controversial person. I'm not talking
yeah, a
about the book.
controversial person. I don't think that necessarily that the book is sitting on your shelf doesn't mean you have to that you are supporting it. And I also think that by not reading these books or dismissing these books, I think we also forget the lessons that we can learn out of them as a reflection. We don't have to
Hmm.
agree with it, but it's also a matter of educating yourself of what has happened so that you are also aware of when it happens again or to prevent it from happening.
Okay.
So I do think to a certain level, just because you have it on your desk, I think we've talked about that doesn't mean that you're a follower or an agreeer. It could also just mean that you're informing yourself to understand what that is about
But
so
what do
that
I
when
need?
you
Okay,
do.
let me ask you then. What do I need to understand? I mean, what is hard to understand here in the kin? Let's talk about this specific case. And real quick, I know the word cancel is a trigger word for many. Let me just
Yeah.
say that Mrs. Rowling, to be very specific here, is not canceled. She lives in a huge mansion. She has a huge platform. Nobody's canceling her. It's completely ridiculous, the reframing and the manufacturing of consent in terms of, oh my God, they're canceling me. She has a huge, huge platform and is ultra rich. When we're talking about canceling, I would like to talk about the bus driver who got laid off because he spoke up for a coworker who was harassed. That is cancellation. But that aside, let me ask you, what can I learn? What can I learn by looking at the case of J.K. Rowling in relation to the Harry Potter books about hierarchic about looking at human beings in a hierarchical framework. I don't know what I can learn from that really.
Well, so I'm talking. Well, I was looking at the books rather than the artist, so I turned it around. But I mean,
Hmm.
you don't have to support her. I mean, if that's up to you.
It
Um,
is.
but it is absolutely, and I agree. You don't have to buy her books anymore. I think that's the whole point that we are free to choose to quote unquote support the books. Maybe because I'm a little bit have one foot in academia and one foot out, I'm always like, look at all sides, explore all sides, and don't just dismiss or take something else. My concern is then how then people, somebody like J.K. Rowling may be highly controversial, and I can understand that she is causing immense damage or could potentially cause immense damage.
Oh, she's not potentially
But
causing
then
damage. She is
no, but she
causing
is. She
damage.
is causing damage. But I mean, I'm also thinking of the longer term effects of like how we then begin to see people,
Hmm.
perhaps not her, but see other people as then one dimensional. You either do something right or you do something wrong, and there's nothing in
Yeah, no,
between.
no, I get the point. This is a good point. But you know what? This is an issue that is broadly speaking very present in society as a whole, that people can
Mm.
only think in binary terms. Now, let me just again assure people that I'm not canceling her. I'm making a personal decision that me as an if I want to call myself an activist for human rights, I don't want to have a book. I mean, I don't want to have a book about written by someone, whatever it is about. I don't want to have a book about from someone who is really who is just completely antithetical to what I stand for in terms of how I see human rights. And I worked in that field for a very long time. I got an award by Desmond Tutu back in 2008 about my human rights work, Second Life related, interestingly enough. So to go to what Screaming says, are you saying you only want to have books written by perfect people? No, not at all. Not at all. But I don't want to have in my shelf a book written by a person who is stands against absolutely everything that I am standing for. That's all I'm saying. It is a form of activism. It's a form of it's not even like a big stand because if friends would come in here, I'm not, I wouldn't start a conversation with, "Hey, you know what? I just got rid of my Harry Potter books." It's not that important. I just don't want to have them there. I also got rid of books by Glenn Greenwald, and I'm not going to go into that. You can look what Glenn Greenwald is saying publicly, and I completely admit that I was sort of like duped into believing that Glenn Greenwald was a great journalist just because he did broke the Snowden story, which is very important, co-broke, let's put it that way. But Greenwald is saying similar things, possibly even worse things, because he's also a political commentator, and has a certain clout in the journalistic realm, that I couldn't, in good conscience, have my Glenn Greenwald book standing next to, for example, my Kurt Vonnegut book, where Kurt Vonnegut is a very, very moral person, right? So, oh, Screaming Left, she says, "Are you for real, bro?" I think I am. Or am I only an avatar? um, okay, so that was a short-lived book club member here, big Kurt Vonnegut fan. And Kurt Vonnegut is a great example because Kurt Vonnegut has, during his lifetime, spoken out for all sorts of issues. He stood on the right side of the main issues during his lifetime. He was an anti-war activist and so on and so forth. And again, I don't expect my writers to, you know, and Monkey, sorry, I'm stepping on you. I'll let you speak in a second, but I also want to make clear that I don't expect my writers, for example, to always be like super politically aware and active and stuff like that, right? So if I don't want to come across as someone like, "Oh my God, this author didn't protest the Vietnam War every day, so I'm going to get rid of his books." I mean, that's baloney. I'm talking about specifically J.K. Rowling to start this conversation, but this is a great conversation.
No, it's fine. I mean, I think it's fine. But then my next question is, how does it working?
What do you
I'm
mean?
very practical when it comes to activism. So I think I'm just thinking like, okay, so I take everything off my shelf. Now what?
What do you mean? Nobody's asking anybody to take everything off your shelf.
No, but by not choosing to have certain authors present in your home, which I can understand. That's perfectly fine. I have no problem with
I
that.
don't know if an author is a
Then my
serial
next,
rapist. I don't want to read his books. I mean, I'm sorry.
no,
I'm
no,
not
and you
saying that
shouldn't.
this is.
No, no, and I
I'm
mean
not saying that
that's not even an
everybody
argument.
should agree with that sentiment. That's why I was opening the floor to this kind of debate. But obviously, yeah.
No, I agree with you, Drax, on that. Like, if you stand fully against the morals or the actions of of an author, and you don't want their books present in your home, perfectly fine. No argument from me. My next question is for those who then do that, because maybe you're a bit more conscientious about the kinds of authors, or you think a little bit further about the kinds of authors you want present in your home. But then my
Yes.
question is then, how does that work? Because you mentioned activism. Then my next question is, how does that help the activism?
How does it help the activism?
How does it help, raise awareness? That would be my next sort
I
of
don't know. I
theoretical
want to.
question.
It doesn't. I don't know if it raises any awareness. It is just
It
healthier. It's just healthier for me and my family.
Yeah,
To surround yourself with things that are inspiring. I mean,
absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think that that's really the important thing. You want to, um, absolutely, Panther. It's choice then awareness.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know. Did I come across like I'm doing some sort of like public act here? I mean, I'm public right now here within this small group, but no, I'm not pretending like me getting rid of my Harry Potter. That's what I'm saying. Getting rid of my Harry Potter books. I'm not going to every dinner conversation now, say like, by the way, look over my shelf. Do you see any Harry Potter books? Well, you don't because no bullshit. That would be incredibly sort of, self-involved. And God, I gotta really unfriend this guy who's constantly teleporting me to this goddamn club here. I think I gotta cancel that guy. There's a guy, no, but I'm joking. Um, Luke says, having worked in a women's hospital, I think understand J.K. Rowling's argument about championing women's causes. She doesn't have to drag the whole trans issue into the mix. Um, Looks, there is a term that I learned through the whole Rowling thing, which is called TERF, trans exclusionary feminist. And to me, that's not real feminism. Feminism has to be intersectional. If it's not intersectional, it's excluding people. So, having been married to a feminist for a very long time who works in a shelter for battered women, of all different persuasions. Um, yeah, I don't know. Uh, I don't think Mrs. Rowling should be called a feminist. When the books were written, the author may have been a different person. Very good point. Resistor is actually making a great point. See, this is where a lot of people that uh, absolutely, Lux. There are many different types of feminism. There is a feminism that excludes, and there's feminism that includes. There's also working class feminism. There are a lot of black feminists that were completely excluded by the white leaders of the movement originally. There's a lot written about this. I'm not going to mansplain feminism. I'm going to have maybe my wife come in. And talk about it. But I read extensively on the history of feminist movements. Um, but the resistor is making a good point. When the books were written, the author may have been a different person. See, this is where a lot of Harry Potter fans, friends of mine who are devastated. Good friend of mine here in Second Life who grew up with Harry Potter is devastated by Mrs. Rowling's behavior. And what she related to me and others was that why does she keep doubling down? Why can't she apologize or kind of correct this somehow and sort of de-escalate it? Um, when a resistor is saying maybe the people were different, I would respond to Mrs. Rowling, yeah, but maybe they always were that person and it's just coming out now. Um, and and that is definitely something to kind of contemplate. There are examples. God, the name escapes me now. Very famous American comedic writer, highly regarded, who turned also into a kind of a little bit of an a-hole. Um, there are a lot of examples of people, of, I think, famous writers who ascended the ladder in a class sense, and then uh, were maybe kind of forgetting their roots where they came from. Can't think of any examples now, but
I just, I, you opened this conversation, Drax, by saying this is a controversial topic, and that concerns me a little bit because it does seem to be, and honestly, it's a matter of personal choice and personal expression,
hmm
and
yeah,
if other people want to buy books that I don't want to buy, that's fine. But
yep.
to make an extreme argument that if I'm not buying one, I shouldn't buy anybody's is kind of like saying if you don't like fiction, you shouldn't buy any genre. It's a little, it's not that extreme for me. Like I said, I kind of thought about this, and
Oh, I don't find it extreme either. And this
it's
conversation.
not.
Yep. This conversation is a great conversation, and you're putting you're adding another really important aspect. The way it's being sort of amplified and kind of um, again, it's a red herring to a certain in a certain sense in the public in the social media discourse, if discourse is the word when people throw mud at each other with absolutely no context for but what's happening there is the whole cancel. Oh, should we cancel or should we cancel? That's completely besides the point. The point here is there is hate speech, and hate speech has impact, and let's protect the vulnerable. End of story. And I just wanted to take this as a jumping off point. How do we deal with these things? And Jessica said something earlier. Please repost it. I lost it here in the shuffle. Um, but I think this conversation is a wonderful conversation with everybody has a valid viewpoint. And again, let me make this clear. I'm not saying that I'm judging people who still read Harry Potter or have it in their house. I'm just telling you how me and my wife have decluttered our library and with this particular author primarily because we find her behavior so despicable that we don't want to have it associated. But we're also not big fans. Again, it would be really awesome if my friend, I'm not going to name her, who was a huge fan of Harry Potter. Again, this is like as if for me as like let's say like a Metallica fan, right? I would find out that James Hetfield was a serial rapist. That would destroy me, to be honest. Because I looked up to James Hetfield when I grew up. He brought me into music. My parents introduced me to classical music. I rebelled from classical. I got into metal. I got Metallica. I was a huge Metallica fan. I kind of then saw the connection between classical and metal. I ended up studying formally at the conservatory because metal brought me into jazz and blah 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 blah. You see what I'm saying? So that would be a whole nother level. So I wonder if anybody here is in the room who can think of someone who
Well,
is yeah.
I'm just saying, I'm not going to judge people because of what they choose to purchase. Um, and I don't. I guess I don't care really, but I don't feel judged based on what I choose to purchase, and that is I don't know.
Yeah, but that's not
Huh.
but Shyla,
I'm
this
thinking
is
too
not the
highly, but
but
I'm
that's not
just thinking it doesn't need to be controversial.
yeah, but Shyla, that's the point here is I don't know. I wanted to we're out of time, but I really wanted to talk about can you do this or can't you separate it? This is what I'm saying. Like if Hitler was let's say a good visual artist, would you put up paintings by him? If he had been as good as Picasso, would you put paintings of Hitler in your apartment? Yes or no? I'm trying to find out how people stand on this, how they can compartmentalize this. Lux is saying something important here that J.K. Rowling thinks about other issues. That's great that she's thinking about that. I don't know how active she is. I have no idea. She came to prominence in my mind because she's punching down on vulnerable people. I said it many times, you know, and that's
I
that.
think it's hard, Drax. I find it a difficult question, and I'm struggling with the answer myself because I find it very difficult. So that's why I'm throwing things out there.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm also reminded that Shyla and I had a conversation, and you know, she happened to mention how her work is a separate entity, and how work sometimes is a separate entity sent out into the world for people to then, chew through and work through and kind of, you know, make it their own, ingest it on their own. So there's also that question of is the work a separate entity from the person once that
That is
person
the
releases
question. That
that,
is the nature of the
and
question.
that's sometimes the case too, because I'm sure, I've heard commentary here also during the group that certain works are misogynistic or this or that, all sorts of commentary because they're looked through a modern lens.
Yeah, yeah, but
And
that's not
so,
the question. That's not the question. The question
but
is
if the
not.
person was really awful or something like that, I find it a very difficult question. And sometimes I think, well, maybe I can read the books. I mean, I read Harry Potter too before the way back,
Mhm.
and I enjoyed them. They were fun. Now I hear what's happening, and well, it's too late. I already read the books.
Yeah, but
I
you're
don't know
glad
what
you
to
read them.
think.
No, no.
You know what I mean? I don't know what to think. I think it's a very difficult question. Um,
Yes,
There's a lot of layers to this question, but I don't think it's a
yeah,
difficult question because what again, I'm going back to Hitler. If Hitler was as good an artist as Picasso or Van Gogh or whatever, would you put a Hitler into your living room after what happened in the Holocaust? this may be, look, oh yeah, now you're comparing Rowling to Hitler. No, I don't. I'm just using this as an example of separating the art from the artist. I'm not talking
But I
about
think the
what
question
the
Even
is,
if
art
it's
where is the
Rowling
depicts.
or
I'm not saying the art itself is misogynistic. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the question is if the artist is a bigot, his art could be beautiful. That's the point here.
I think it depends on
so?
the. Go ahead, Shala.
I think it is a difficult question in the sense that I don't have a particular rule of thumb. And so I can't say that I always separate the art from the artist
Hmm.
or that I don't, separate. Like neither one is true. And so the question it creates in myself is what is my basis? Where is the line
Yes,
or
exactly.
lines that
See,
make me do that? So
that's
I
a
think it
perfect
makes it a complicated question.
but that is a perfect answer. This is that we are very aligned in that sense. We're very aligned in that sense, in the sense that we draw a line, and the line is fluid, it's movable. And in the case, and interestingly enough, we lost another listener or viewer here on YouTube. Exist Extinct says on YouTube, there is no such thing as hate speech. That's a tool to shut down conversation. Exist Extinct, I could not disagree more. I fundamentally disagree with that notion, but that's maybe a topic for another show. There is hate speech. Hate speech exists, and it's pretty clear to it's easy to delineate. I believe, but what Shyla said, I think that's what we can agree on. It's on a case by case basis, and for me the line is again is the is punching down hate speech, exclusionary behavior, and so forth. Let's see here. Flenser said a whole bunch of things. I want to read that. Somebody turned their mic on. Is it Stranger? Because usually Stranger starts talking about 5 minutes
Sometimes there
before
are
closing time.
sometimes there are in the very same book. Let's say a book by Nietzsche or somebody like that. In the very same book, there might be some crazy thing that's
Yeah,
an ugly thought or an evil thought in that book. And nonetheless, that very same book is worth reading because there's also brilliant insights in the same book.
very
You know,
Stranger is making a
it's
very good point, and I completely agree. But when we're talking about philosophers and people like that, that's absolutely true. Um, with entertainment fiction, I'm not so sure if it's that relevant. With Nietzsche, I'm a huge Nietzsche fan. By the way, I know Nietzsche. Let's Nobody has said that, but let me just say also Nietzsche was not an anti-Semite. His sister was. She was a big fan of Hitler. She gave him Nietzsche's what is it called? His walking stick. Um, that the Nazis referred to Nietzsche shows how little they understood of him. But that's besides the point. This is a very good point, Stranger. Certainly true with deep thinkers. Not so true, I guess, with a popular fantasy series.
Well, I'll also say that I haven't read that much of the Potter books, but what I've read of them,
She stole them
they
from
are
Ursula K. Le
they
Guin, anyways. So
also there are thought-provoking passages and ideas in those books. So you can't say that she doesn't have any value in that way in those books.
but again, that's not what I'm saying either. I'm not I said it now tongue in cheek, but no, I understand what you're saying. It's a very valid point. I just want to make clear that to me this is not the point. The point is not that the work is valid or invalid. The question is who is the creator of the work. That's all that matters to me, anyways.
But there actually is an interesting question about that. It gets into the down the rabbit hole of the nature of reality and consciousness and whatnot. But there is a paranormal phenomenon known as a download, in which people suddenly find
Hmm.
A whole complex set of ideas are suddenly in their head, like they've been put there by someone or something. It's just that's how Rowling says that the Harry Potter books came there. She was riding on a bus, I mean, on a train rather, riding on a train one afternoon, and suddenly the entire thing was there in her head.
That's a
So
wonderful.
it's an interesting question who maybe even actually or what wrote those books. But
God wrote
I
them.
mean,
No, no, no. I mean,
she's
that's a
the one.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she's the one who did the typing. But anyway. But yeah.
No, that's great, Stranger. I mean, there's similar sort of origin stories like that. That's all awesome stuff. And again, here Flenser, for example, says people given half a chance can change. Problem is there are many others who feel they need to say something too. I don't know what the second sentence is. Please elaborate. But I like to believe that people can change. Um, some people are even given the chance to change and to retract. People with 3 million, 4 million followers on Twitter, let's say, people who made millions and millions and millions from their works, they're given the chance to change, but they choose not to. They choose to alienate their fan base. They choose to not only alienate their fan base, they choose to alienate almost everyone who is associated with them. Plus, uh, again, punching down and spewing hateful rhetoric that inspires people to again, there's no direct connection. I'm not saying that. Inspiring people to issue bomb threats against gender reassignment um, clinics who do gender reassignment. So yeah, what a controversial topic. Um, Rosivaldo said God said Nietzsche's dead. That's pretty funny. Yeah, I heard that before. But Nietzsche is really, really amazing, and The God is Dead is just it's absolutely amazing. And I think people who have never read Nietzsche, they throw that around. The God is Dead, and they have absolutely no clue uh, what he meant by that. But I encourage folks to investigate what he did mean by that because he kind of really foresaw uh, what he meant by that was the advent of basically nihilism, if you will. Um, and arguably, we're going through a phase of that. Now, Lux says, I didn't know we were talking about Kanye West. Thank God we're not. We were not, but we might as well. I think I posted something about Kanye. Said, Kanye. Some people said, "Oh, Kanye is such an amazing artist. Too bad he's now becoming this terrible anti-Semite." I think I posted something like, I honestly I don't think Kanye is that great of a musician. Um, but changed my mind. As a mediocre musician, as a professional yet mediocre musician, who really cares about great music, uh, including hip hop. There's fantastic hip hop people. I'm not a snob who despises hip hop. There are those in my field. Um, I really don't think he's that great. But okay, completely besides the point. Next week, we're completely out of time. Next week, let me throw this up. Next week we have Pani. This is very cool. Pani Paniscus is going to talk about role play in Second Life. I didn't get to speak about Bleeding Edge, Thomas Pynchon, who's a very very good moral guy, very moral backbone. Um, now Patty Paniscus next week will be speaking about role play in Second Life, and he will also talk about erotic role play. And he actually emailed me and said, "Can we talk about, like erotic role play, or this has to be PG?" I said, "No, no, no. We don't have to be PG. We can do whatever we want here on the book club, except for uh, except for talking about J.K. Rowling, apparently, because that's too controversial." Um, it's just there's two sides to every story. But that's next week at 12 o'clock. And thank you, everyone. I'm going to go to outro music for a few minutes, and if people want to stick around and chat or send some more messages on YouTube, highly encourage you to check out the calendar. It has a link to Panny's website. He has a book. I wrote the forward in this book. It's called Learning to Role Play in Virtual Worlds. Really, really cool. I mean, he really there's nothing like this on the book market. I hope Penny will still come now that he knows that I hate J.K. Rowling. I don't know. Let me check my email, how many cancellations I got. I think people are canceling me now, right? Am I canceled? Thank you, Water. Thank you, Jessica. Jessica didn't repeat her point from earlier. Um, Lux, the Resistor Bunny. Good luck with Infinite Jest. Please ping me anytime with Infinite Jest. I'm the resident expert. Flenza, Jamonkey, Panther, Pantera, Little Brat, Stranger. Oh, one thing that I oh yeah, actually Monkey, I mean we addressed this, but Monkey made this good point. I'm also equally worried. That's what I forgot to say. I'm equally worried about the binary thinking and the self-censorship on in terms of for example, publishing, publish the publishing world, with what's happening with Rowling and others. So the market power in the structure of capitalism, um, that is a problem if it's the pretext to cancel in the real sense of the word, meaning don't give people economic opportunities because they have a controversial opinion. In the case of Mrs. Rowling, this is not the case. I would be way more worried about other aspects of publishing. You know, minorities being published. There's a story of a woman who was a migrant from Mexico, wrote a book, um, a wonderful book that she self-published about her trek from Mexico to the United States. Nobody wanted to touch it. Um, she was canceled a priori, if you will, because of her status as a marginalized figure. So anyway, looking very much forward to next week. Oh, wait a minute. Here's Lord Eric Wall. Lord Eric, welcome to the Second Life Book Club. You missed the most controversial program ever. Usually we're not that controversial. God damn it, Lord Eric. But welcome anyways. Please join the group and come next week. We'll try to keep up the controversy. Um, we'll try to feed the attention economy with outrage. 12 o'clock usually, Lord Eric, unless otherwise in the calendar. Sometimes we have little different times when we have to accommodate a specific author. Okay, I'm gonna go to commercial. I'm gonna go to music, and then I'm gonna burn some more books. I didn't even burn those Glenn Greenwald books. I just put them in the trash. Oops, there's a commercial. We want to have some outro music. Here we go. This is the theme from Virtual Ability from the Login to Life movie. Goodbye.